Personnel Committee to order. Mr. Kalish, would you please take the roll?
Carroll. Here. Brewer.
Here.
Luck. Manning.
Here.
Gotcho.
Here.
Kirk.
Here.
Williamson.
Here.
Dewey.
Here.
Fleming. 7 of 9.
Thank you. That was proof of notification. We have a 16 point agenda. I take a gander and give me a motion. Manning, second by Williamson. All those in favor of that motion to approve the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Approval of January 2nd minutes. Yes, January 2nd. Was thinking we approved minutes last night. That was a different meeting. That was a county board meeting. Okay. The January 2nd meeting minutes were in the packet and published. Do you have any exceptions, changes, or if not, I'm going to declare them approved as published. Public comment? Anyone here just to make a public? Reports? County administrators.
Well, there's a lot happening, as I keep being reminded. Biggest news is that the Senate Bill 518 passed today with 27 ayes and 5 noes, meaning that the funding for 2-year campuses will be moving onto the governor's desk for signature. The amendment to the bill did request a 20% match from the county, which we are able to support. So it's nothing to worry about, and letters of support from the community, as well as a requirement to just report our expenditures, what we spend our money on, which will not be difficult to do. So let's hope that the governor signs it and that we can move forward. I would like to just say a thank you to Howard Markline and Tony Kurtz. They have done an outstanding job for us, and they've really advocated for us on this front, and they've been communicating pretty regularly with me, and I've appreciated the ability to have some input on this. So they've really done some good work for us in Richland County. So I had a phone call today with Tessa Melvin, who is our consultant for the wage study, and we've formulated kind of our initial steps. What we are working on now is developing a listing of comparable counties that are similarly situated to us, tax base, organizationally, counties that touch us. You have to throw in a few of the outliers, the Dane counties, just as a data point, but we know that's not a true comparison. And so once we have those 10 to 15 counties identified, we will bring them to this committee for approval. And then the hard work begins. Every employee will get it's a 6-page document to complete to basically rewrite their job description. So we don't have an exact timeline yet. Once we've identified our counties, we will basically start working backward and develop our timeline, do employee education meetings, do update meetings for the board, things like that. So that is very exciting, and we're really looking forward to that process. Last night we had a very good meeting with Andy Phillips to talk through board rules and committee structure. We are also working on a finance and procurement policy to really outline our financial practices and how we purchase and what our regulations look like and stipulations for all of our staff. We're also working on revamping our FMLA policy, our handbook, the way we advertise for jobs. So a lot of big things happening right now at the county. So with that, I think that's about it for now.
Well, what you don't mention is we're getting geared up for April when the new board is seated. So
that's why
these are interesting times.
and the RFP. We're working with Venture and we'll be setting dates to get moving on the RFP for the campus as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Discussion, moving on to financial discussion and possible action, resolution approving the sheriff's office purchase of 2 new vehicles and the purchase and installation of appropriate equipment for those vehicles. I know we have a resolution, but perhaps Sheriff Porter could comment before we talk about that.
Yeah, so, surprise to me, one of the squads we ordered is already here. Well, not here, it's at Philback's. So they're awaiting payment. I wouldn't have expected that until probably June, but here it is. So I'm just kind of looking at getting the ball rolling to start, build up stuff and procuring equipment and making sure I have authorization for payment before I start ordering everything. We ordered the squads ahead of time because we always run the risk of squads close the bid session closing before we have the authorization. So I generally, once I have the okay from my committee, I go ahead and order the cars. So which is what we did in December, but would not have guessed that one of them would have been here so soon.
Now, you mentioned bidding. Are we doing bidding?
Yep, yes, we do. So I do bids for the purchase of the squads. Last year, we've kind of traditionally always went through GenCom for the upfitting and the equipment. Last year, I did receive bids from other companies, but they were all very comparable. And then with GenCom being our radio vendor, it just kind of makes sense to have them do everything instead of having to take it one place for radio and another place for the rest of the equipment. We just opted to stick with everything through them.
How about for the vehicles themselves?
We only received a bid from one place, Philback's, and that's kind of been the
Well,
standard the last few years.
we always buy Fords.
Yeah, well, we buy Dodges a lot lately, but it seems that Philback is the only place interested in bidding, so. Yep.
All right, do we have a resolution prepared, Derek? You want to put it to the record? Perhaps? Or don't you want to do that? I mean, it's there, it's self-evident, so. Okay,
Did you want me to read it, Mr. Chairman?
well, you don't have to. Okay. Everyone here can read it, so there it is. And this is budgeted, by the way. I mean, this is no surprises here. Okay, so.
Move for approval.
Second. Approval by Williamson, second by Manning. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Discussion and possible action, resolution approving the purchase of cabling in the courthouse. And I will turn to.
So as part of the radio tower project, we have to put some additional cabling in the courthouse to reach the antennas on the roof. We're moving locations. And also this will support some of the cameras that we'll be locating throughout the courthouse, which is also part of this radio tower project and security project. So to get all of the wiring in that we need, it is $10,672. That is part of the budget of the overall project, but because it's over $10,000, we have to come.
Budgeted,
Yes.
okay. Does that mean they drill into the floor and chop
Yep.
holes in it?
Well,
Ditches.
it will not be chopping holes in it, what I envision when you say that, but it's going up through the walls and, yeah. We're not gonna leave big holes,
No, that's what I meant.
but yeah, it'll be a lot of work. Little dust.
Okay, heard it. Do I have a motion? Mr. Turk makes the motion, seconded by Cooey. All those in favor of the. Mr. Carroll.
So, I mean, we've been expending on the towers for a while, and I don't think we've been approving those intermediate payments, have we, here in this committee?
Probably not. Barb?
This is a different vendor than the, because this is a tertiary vendor, that's why this is here. You made the approval for, GenCom, sorry, I wanted to say Baycom, it wasn't right, for GenCom, so that's already been. Then this is another vendor with it being strings, and that's why it's here separately. You'll also have other vendors, stuff, you'll have made an approval for, oh, Justin Brooks's company, the engineering company that
Edge
came through
Consulting.
here.
Edge.
Edge Consulting, that came through. So they've been coming through regularly.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This goes to the point that we made and discussed last night of once a project or an item is budgeted, it should not need to come back through again and again and again. So once we switch the rules, then there will be no longer a requirement for these types of things to keep resurfacing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this action. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion approved. Number
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I don't know, Barbara, did she give an update? We've had a few issues. Is it okay to talk about it here? I mean,
Well, they,
the people in your, on the committee that already know about
the
it.
issues aren't with the radio tower project, they're with the dispatch upgrade. So it's not really on the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Well, now my interest to speak, so.
More information to come.
Well, let's, at our next meeting, let's have an update on the project, on the agenda. All right. Number 10, discussion possible action, resolution authorizing Richland County Ambulance Service to apply for and accept a grant of federal funds.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amber Birch. I'm the interim service director for the ambulance service. So the resolution that we're bringing before you today is for us to be able to apply for, it's called the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, but ambulance services are eligible to apply for it. Per the board rules, we have to have this approved by committees to be able to apply for and accept the grant funds. So we had applied for this grant last year, and we must have been competitive because we didn't actually get notice that we didn't get the grant funded until December. And the grant was due the end of February last year. This grant is one that typically has a fairly short window of time for us to be able to apply for the funds. And again, it is a very competitive grant. It's a national federal grant through FEMA. And so last year's resolution, we were able to include the numbers from the vendors as far as the cost of the radios and therefore the cost of the total project and what our exact share would be. However, because of the way that the process has been, we haven't gotten those numbers to a point where we'd be able to have them official on the resolution. But running the numbers tonight, so what we're writing this grant for is to be able to purchase radios that would be compatible with the upgrades to the radio tower project. What we currently have, many of the radios that we have for our service and for different departments across the county would not be compatible with the new system that's going to be in place. So that's what this grant funding is going to be written for. So we would be writing it for our ambulance service. It would be about $50,000 is what we're going to be requesting from FEMA for the radios. Our share would come to about $2,500 is our share of that project. So it feels kind of like a no-brainer as far as trying to get something that we vitally need for, such a small amount in comparison.
Thank you, Amber. You've heard it. Do I have a motion? I'll make a motion. Mr. Cooey, seconded by Mr. Williamson. It is a no-brainer, but that's our specialty here. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I don't mean to disparage this group, but excuse me. It's uncalled for. Okay, and number 11, a resolution approving payment of change orders for the Richland County Ambulance Service. Number.
So, as you guys are likely aware, we have the emergency services building that houses the ambulance as well as the emergency management, LEPC and a few other things. As part of that project, we had to have the garage, have an addition to it because the ambulances would not fit in that space without that addition. So that project was approved and is pretty much done. It's had many delays that didn't need to be, but that's a different thing. So as part of the project, there were 4 different things that ended up needing to have change orders, which led to you guys having to walk through this approval tonight. The 3 of them were relatively small things. It was looking at the slope of the roof, so that the roof would drain appropriately. For whatever reason, they had the slope slightly different than what the contractor had recognized would be beneficial. So that change order was put through. And then the other 2 were related to concrete. One of the issues with the concrete that was initially in the specs had led to cracking, and so they were able to amend what that was in the orders to be able to get that to be concrete that mix that was going to be have better longevity with ambulances driving over top. And then having a pad for the generator to be able to sit on so that it's not sitting in the slush and muck and whatnot. However, the largest change order that was required for us to have included was somehow it was overlooked when they were working through the specs to put out for bid the hooking up of the sprinkler system into the water system. And that was a very hefty cost. And so that's to my knowledge, that's the bulk of the cost for the change order invoice that we have before you. So this amount, the $33,000 would be coming out of Fund 51, which is the ambulance's segregated account. Those funds are in there. The Joint Ambulance Committee had discussed as part of approving the project whole. They had discussed the fact that there would very likely be things that would come out of the ambulance account. And so they are prepared for this to take place. So does anybody have any questions on that?
Wouldn't you rather spend the ambulance fund on something else?
Well, as it's just the way that things were budgeted, it made the most sense for it to come out of there. Kind of the ambulance services share of the project, if you will.
Any questions? Steve?
Who generated the concrete specification that wasn't right? Who did the engineering on that?
So all of the specs, to my knowledge, and I apologize, there are going to be things that I don't necessarily know because there were parts of this project I wasn't entirely involved in. But most of the spec stuff came through Jewel, is my knowledge, or is my understanding. So typically, what I recall of the situations, typically it was when they were getting ready to implement some of these, they recognized that there was a gap in what would be most beneficial for the project.
Probably went with 5-bag mix.
I couldn't say.
But
Well, I think I know where Mr. Carroll's going with this because they have insurance for they drew up the specs. I mean, I agree with Steve. But I know there's change orders on every project, but how could you miss the sprinkler hookup?
That's the other thing I
that's
asked.
the big expense.
And I don't know which dollars are which, but that's the big one. And if we left it as a turnkey design build, that's something they should have known and identified. And I don't know why we would pick up the bill.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak too much to that. I do know that Corp Counsel was involved in various aspects of the project, and this may be one of the ones that he was involved in. I know that there was a change order that there was a lot of communication on at one point in time. So I know Corp Counsel, and unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, he's really the only one who's still involved in the project that has the length of the project knowledge. So it's certainly something that we could look into if that's what you're.
Without more justification, I'd be inclined to disagree with approving it.
Or just a suggestion, whoever made the motion could be amended with refer the matter to court counsel. Or talking to them.
Well, Mr. Chair, I don't even think we have it on the floor yet. I would make a motion in order to get it on.
Oh, we did,
Scott.
maybe not. Williamson, seconded by. All right, so. I think that's the motion that should be made. We'll approve it, but refer it through court counsel back to the engineering firm. I don't know what they call them. We call it errors and omissions in the insurance business, but not sure what they.
Well, I don't know. Steve, are you comfortable with approving it? Oh, I mean, I would say we don't approve it for what's another 30 days. And then find out from Mr. Wendell what he knows about it. If Jules has insurance, I mean, we can find out. If they don't have insurance, I guess we're gonna have to pay it. But I don't know, Mr. Bowie, thoughts?
My experience, most all the time you're paying it.
Yeah.
See, that's all I
I don't
know.
want to be hiring companies that don't have insurance in the first place.
Well, and you didn't, but just in my experience, it's always change orders.
Yep.
There's always something that they work their way through, and the person who's building the building pays a fee.
Mr.
That's
Chair.
my experience.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that we did uncover in speaking with Amber, trying to track this down backwards, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, as we've all kind of communicated on this, is the change orders that occurred, as large as they were, should have come through committee to be approved prior to any action happening on them, and that didn't happen. And I don't know where that ball got dropped, if did the ambulance committee ever even take these up?
So the committee chair had been in on the conversations with the committee itself because each of them individually had not been at that level. And I don't know as far as with sprinkler one,
Right.
how that.
So,
The big one was the length of the building, having to extend it for the ambulances, wasn't that? And then drywalling it, drywalling it, which wasn't even done, wasn't even
Yeah.
planned for.
Yes, there were, to say that we've been frustrated with the project is an understatement. There have been many gaps that, they were more than just simple oversights, it feels like. The sprinkler system is just one of them. We were able to overcome some of the other difficulties, but, the project is still ongoing because there are things that were done that have not been corrected immediately. And it seems like anytime we find a seemingly minor thing that just needs someone to come and take a look at it, we've had more than a month wait for that person to come and take a look at the thing. So it just seems like we're not high on their priority list, but.
but this highlights our need for procurement policy and proper follow through when we do have projects like this, when change orders happen, so that we're getting proper approval and so that the committees are aware. And if there are issues, which it sounds like there have been throughout this project, that we can get corp counsel involved at an appropriate time to hopefully address these situations before they get so far gone.
And
So
like I had said, corp counsel had been involved. I don't know the resolution of things, but I know that he had been heavily involved for several months.
Well,
And if we had that kind of backup report from corp counsel or whoever to look at and review, I might be fine with it. Until I see it, I'm not.
right, so I believe now a postponement motion to postpone would be in order, so we can get it over to corp counsel and talk about it next meeting.
I would agree with that.
Are you making the motion?
I'll make a motion that we postpone.
Okay. To the next meeting.
Yep.
Do I have a second? Mr. Manning? All right, and you know why. All those in favor of postponing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Wendell is not with us, is he? Virtually? No. All right. Okay, Amber, thanks. Thank you. But hey, I've been in the building and I like what you've done
Yeah,
with the place. I like what you've done with the place.
we're incredibly grateful for what we had. We purchased an ambulance from Muscadet, and the sheriff's department is letting us borrow a bay for a little while, and backing it into the bay, it just, again, reiterates that we are so grateful we don't have to fold the mirrors in when we back the trucks in and watch all the vents so we don't knock anything
Put the
off.
reds on and stop traffic.
All the, yeah, there's just so many reasons we're grateful.
Well,
The list is
we're
endless.
grateful to you, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Opioid settlement, possible action, update and future action. Are you prepared to address this?
Well, Mike was supposed to be here to address it, so he didn't really give me a whole lot of information. You received it in the mail.
I received it in the
I don't
mail.
believe it's to do with a bankruptcy filing,
Well, in a structured settlement,
a
I think.
structured settlement,
what
so
we're Talking about.
because he's not here, he didn't give me
I
any
mean,
of the
it was,
documents.
I didn't go through it. It was like 50 pages of
Yeah.
gobbledygook, so.
No, so
Okay,
just table it until.
table it, well, just, we won't take no action. All right? Okay, takes us down to personnel action, discussion and possible action. Establishment of the salary for the county clerk, county treasurer, and register of deeds for the 25-28 term. And I would remind anyone who isn't familiar with this process, our constitutional officers in the county, you heard last night, they're not county employees, and yet they act in that capacity in many ways. And the regular salary schedule of the county does not involve them. So each 3 years, is it 4? Is that for 4 years? I suppose it is. Every 4 years, we have to establish those salaries. And I have asked our county administrator to make some recommendations. I know that she did a lot of research,
Not just me, but
and Derek was involved, his staff in neighboring counties. So take it away, please.
okay, well, I can't say that I did the work on this because the officers themselves reached out to their counterparts. And also I did reach out to some of the county administrators to determine what was happening in other counties. We're fairly early out the gate in this process, but we were able to look at not only what had been done for other elected officials previously in our county, but what other counties were doing, where we're falling short, what we thought would be reasonable going forward, given the fact that we have a wage study coming and we know we're behind. And so there's a document that that was prepared based on all of that information that was gathered. Derek, would you like to speak to that since you?
So the document Administrator Pesh is referencing is available on the screen. So starting at the top, it says 25-28 proposed salaries. So this would be effective with the term for myself as county clerk, the county treasurer, and the register of deeds effective 2025 through the end of 2028. So what you'll see in that chart up there is, this is the proposal. I put this right out front of the center because this is, as the powers that be, the three of us, when we convened to just review averages as best as we had available, and came up with a scale. So you're gonna see 2024 is the base, which says 67,882.95. So that is the base salary. That is the 2024 salary that you folks decided back in 2020 for the register of deeds and the county treasurer, okay? I'll talk a little more about that as we go down, but what you'll just see then for years 25, 6, 7, and 8 are the proposed salaries increases, and then the proposed salary, and then the increases from each year, okay? So that total, this is the items that we have to decide on. You all have to on this before nomination papers can be submitted and released by myself, county treasurer, and the register of deeds. Okay, so some things underneath that where it says salary proposal considerations, these are some of the things that we collectively, and Jeffrey and Sue, if I'm speaking out of turn, feel free to chime in, but these are just some of the items that we all reviewed together, as well as with Administrator Pesh. So one thing to note is the county clerk salary, you're going to see a reduction from $83,326.44 to $67,882.95. So that's an approximately $15,443.49 reduction in the salary of the county clerk, which was adopted by resolution with you folks on resolution 21-57. You adopted that April 20th of 2021. So you will recall with the switch in the administrator form of government, we moved from administrative coordinator, which is why those the additional $15,000 was attached to the county clerk. And now that we have an administrator, that will go away. So the finance officer duties, you all then agreed to have me complete the finance officer duties as a county clerk to make up for that extra bit of salary that was included with this term. So effective with the 2025 term, the finance officer duties would be removed from the office of the county clerk, and your county clerk would then function as a statutory county clerk guided under 59.23 of Wisconsin state statutes. So that is one consideration there. That accounts for the salary, and that's why the chart that I have at the top, Jeff, the county treasurer, register of deeds, and now the county clerk, for the first time, I believe in a long time for Richland County, will all be at the same salary. And that's common across counties in Wisconsin. Sometimes you'll see one of those offices paid a couple thousand more than the other, but it's not uncommon for them to be the same across the board. If you ask the various officers, some of them agree with that or some of them don't, but nonetheless, this is what we're presenting here at Richland County, that all three of our elected offices will be at the same salary range, which again is very common in Wisconsin. Second point to note is that the Register of Deeds office is currently right now functioning at 35 hours per week. They will move to a 40-hour work week. In 2019, the county treasurer and the county clerk's office, we transitioned into a 40-hour work week. We were 35 for the longest time, and now effective with this 2025 term, the Register of Deeds office will go to 40 hours. Okay, and then just for comparison, so you folks set these salaries for other offices as well. So I have resolution number 20-44, which would have been the most recent one that you adopted for these wages last time. So I tried to condense this as much as possible, but resolution number 20-44 set the salaries for the clerk, treasurer, and register of deeds. You did a 2.5% increase, a 2.5% increase, a 1.5, and a 1.5. So, year one was 2.5, 2, 3, and 4 follow with those numbers for a total of $4,373 for the county clerk. And then for the register of deeds and the county treasurer, you did an increase of 2.5, 2.5, 1.8, and 1.8. Okay, so raise that salary from beginning of the term to the end of the term to $3,997. I did include those resolutions in your packet for reference. So if you look at item 13B, that's resolution number 20-44, which shows what you folks did last time. I thought that would be good for you to see what you did last time. So that's how the last couple of years for these offices have functioned. Now, moving forward to kind of compare what you did for other elected offices, because you know that you also have to do the same thing for the sheriff, the clerk of court, and the coroner. So if you look at resolution number 22-20, which is 13B in your packet, or I'm sorry, 13C in your packet, this is the salary scale that you adopted for the constitutional officers of clerk of court, register of deeds, and the sheriff. I'm bopping between the two screens here as I learned how to use this, so bear with me. But this I provided you just for reference, so you had some sort of comparison for other offices within the county. So those are the documents you have before you. Also in this summary sheet that I prepared, going back to this sheet that's on the screen there, what you're going to see here in the bottom are county clerk comparisons and county treasurer comparisons. Again, as I alluded to before, the county treasurer and the register of deeds, I think for most counties that are, there we go. Okay, for most counties that are comparable to us, those are the same. So I didn't do a separate one for the register of deeds, but I think, Sue, we agreed that it was okay if they were presented the same, and Jeff, you agreed as well.
They
Okay.
are the same.
So you'll notice that the counties, their names are not listed on there because as Administrator Pesh alluded to earlier as well, we're in the early stages of this. And when we were trying to, find numbers, a lot of folks have not adopted these yet, right? Because they don't really you have to adopt it before April, but a lot of people are still kind of, finalizing this with their boards and that thing. So I personally didn't feel comfortable publishing my counterparts counties with numbers that are not real yet or not decided upon. But I can tell you that the salary debate for these offices is hot and heavy this year. I think a lot of people are really going through the same struggles we are in terms of looking at what you're paying people and how that, is relevant and keeping up with wage scales. We've had a similar conversation to this with the wage study as well. So what I've done with this chart is literally listed counties A through H. I kept the populations vague too. I mean, they're within the full 1,000 population, but this just gives you an idea of where counties are. That being said, all county clerks and treasurers and register of deeds were all bound by the same statutes, but duties within those offices vary greatly, and it's impossible to compare them to one another because we're all formed a little differently and we all do various non-statutory duties and statutory duties differently. So this was meant to give you a summary of where people are, and then obviously you have Richland for our proposed totals there in the middle. I will note, if you look at populations, I use population when I compare what I do with other counties. I know the treasurer's office may use something like parcels because that may be a little more applicable to the work they're doing or something like that. But in this case, I use population, and if they're kind of, I don't want to say they're all over the place, but there is a bit of difference, and it really is hard to compare these all to one another because there's no county that's exactly the same. So the best we can do is we can look at market wages in terms of public and private. We can look at our wage scales that we currently have for the county and compare, what other county employees with similar duties are getting paid, and then the impact of error. I love it that Candace says that. I think it's such a valid point. I think, people in certain positions that they make errors can impact a county much more than those in others. And then, as Supervisor Luck noted in the last meeting, just basic employee retention and attraction too, right? Like, it's hard to find people to run an elected position sometimes. I think we know this with county board this year because we have 4 open spots, right? So, if you use that as a retention tool for the folks you have, and then also a possible attraction tool to have others join the fund. So this is the information that I've compiled. I'm happy to take any questions or explain it any further, but I will give my counterparts an opportunity to speak so I don't talk all the time.
Derek, how did you do the projection? County clerk, for instance, you show a 2028 salary.
Yep, so you look at
It's right here.
so here at the top again, the base that we're gonna start 2024, or where we're at right now, is 67,882.95. In 2025, then a 13% increase would be that 8,824.78, bringing the proposed salary for the 2025 at 76,000. In 2026, a 5% increase, equaling about $3,800, bringing the salary to 80,000. In 2027, a 4% increase with a value of 3,221. And then in 2028, a 3% increase worth 2,500 to ending the 2028 term at 86,277.79, which for instance, for the county clerk right now is a $3,000 difference. However, remember the extra pays going away from the county clerk and the finance officer duties and any extra duties outlined in that memorandum that the previous administrator Langreck and I signed will be absorbed by another department other than the county clerk. So that's how those numbers are, Marty. It's county treasurer, register of deeds. I sat down and obviously with Administrator Pesh at one point as well, and believe that a 25% increase over that time would hopefully get us somewhere on the wage scale that's applicable and appropriate, and then was also in line with what the other constitutional officers were granted a few years ago. So they had a 21% overall increase. We're proposing a 25, but that is also to, again, help with the wage scales and getting positions where they fall on the scale.
I mean, Derek, that was my question. How did you arrive at 25%?
Derek, do you want me to take that?
Sure.
So when you're looking at wages overall, number one, you look at what percent increase were they given the last time? And overall, they were only given an 8%. So that started in 2021. So they're already behind the curve because they were given a very, very small increase at that time. Then you fast forward to the 2023 term for the sheriff and the clerk of courts, and it was a 21% increase. So you've already got a very large disparity then between elected officials. And, you know, this isn't a true apples to apples comparison. We're not looking at job duties and making a rating and then deciding, which is something that, you know, I'm going to explore a little more as we go forward. Obviously, they're still elected officials, but give us an idea based on the duties where they would fall within our wage scale to give us a better idea of overall compensation. But so you look at these three elected officials and they are very, very, very far behind the curve. Then you look at just the trends in the market as they sit. When you have inflation rates of 9% and you're giving raises that are, you know, 3%, 2%, again, you're falling behind. And when you look down at the bottom and you look at the comparisons for similarly situated counties, we're on the low end in 2024. We make up for it and we get more in line by 2028. So I believe you have to almost correct for the underpayment for several years. And that's why that 13% makes sense in the beginning, to correct that underpayment now and then fall more in line with what would make sense within the market for the next few years. And so that's where this method seems to make sense and bring a little bit of internal equity, which is always nice. And then, as I said, the next time we do this, we'll have a lot more usable market data that will give us a better guideline going forward based on the duties of each position, as well as the standards from other counties.
We don't know though what the other counties will do. I mean,
Right now, these are what they are proposing to their boards. It's just that they're not voted yet, so we didn't want to basically out people before it was a formal record. But it has gone around in several
and our
surveys.
25% figure for the next 4 years is not out of line with them because they seem to be.
Right, because we were so far, if you look, I mean, we're pretty far behind
Yeah.
a lot of them. And like I said, especially to start off, we really start evening out and catching up right about, well, the 2025, 2026 is, you know, and then by 2028, we're very competitive. We're mid to upper range, which is where we should be, not only to retain the staff we have, as Derek said, but to encourage people to run. One thing with elected officials you do find is if you underpay them, nobody wants to run. Because they're tough jobs.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may.
Okay, so even removing myself from this position and looking solely at the way that I've been functioning as county clerk for the last few years, if you look at some of these salaries, they're making what I was making as a county clerk and with the additional duty, right? So there are things like that to think about, and just want to put that out there to kind of prove, to supplement Candace's point, where there's a little bit of catch up then, if that's what we're trying to build, this equity between just getting people correctly on the scale, so.
And I think it's also important to note that there are varying staff formations as well. And as you all know, we're pretty lean on our staffing. So a lot of times, if you look at the staffing patterns for a lot of these other offices, they may have additional support staff and still be making these wages. And our employees are having to absorb more and do more because we don't have those staffing patterns, which again is saving us money on one hand, but we need to make it right on this end.
We have some officers here. Do they wish to speak?
Sure. Derek and Candace really hit a lot of the main points. As far as front loading that initial first year with the 13%, that's really not out of line with what the other counties that we surveyed have done. We found that it's pretty typical right now of the proposals to front load a larger increase on that first year of the term, like Candace said, to get everybody kind of up to market at that point and then start tapering off. Some of the counties that I have, the first year they did a 25% raise, 15% raise, 18%, and 12%. So us at 13, I mean, it's more than historically has been done here, but as far as our peer counties that we surveyed, it's not out of the realm. Breaking it down to an hourly wage, which is something we all kind of know, that first year at 76,707.73, plus the 3 offices at $36.88 an hour. Comparing internally to our own wage scale, that would put us at a range 100 grade M as in Mary, which is a managerial level position within other departments within the county. So it's not even out of the realm of what we pay a manager and not even a department head in other departments.
Sue?
Well, I think Derek and Jeff have said everything, and Candace, and I agree with it all. I think if you want, decent people in these positions, you need to pay them. It's.
Anyone else? No. All right, so are we taking action on this? No, probably not tonight.
There's a resolution prepared.
Are we prepared to take action on it? I will ask the committee, what are your wishes?
Is it on the table yet? I didn't remember.
Numbers.
So, I don't have a motion. We're just gathering facts here.
Well, I had a question, that's why I was gonna wait for it on the table.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, this is Supervisor Gotcho. I would move for approval as presented.
okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? No, sorry. Mr. Cooley seconds. All right, question.
Again, this is just for his story and my curiosity. I noticed in the example from the resolution 2044, it was, they went past 3-2. I was just wondering what the score was on that.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you were part of that committee, so I thought you might.
I voted for it, so I don't know why the other two voted against.
Okay.
That's, there's this. There's a built-in, it's almost a bias against elected officials in counties. Well, so-and-so's been doing the job for so many years, and why should we pay, the job's only worth this much, why should we even increase the salary? And that you're always fighting that bias. But I believe hopefully this board and the incoming board are beyond that bias.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And to address Jeffrey's point, if you look at our actual wage scale, so something that has been rated by Carlson Detman, most of your department head levels are at, R and P. They're way up there, making upwards of $40 an hour. So you have 3 department head level positions here with the affect of error that is significant. If the taxes are messed up, if something's not recorded properly, if our elections aren't conducted and our finances aren't maintained properly, what is the affect of that error? And so to me, these are key positions within the county that have a huge impact. And I have no doubt that once we actually have a consultant take a look and tell us really where they should be paid for the duties that they perform, it will be significantly higher than even what this is. I have no doubt.
Okay. We have a motion and a second and an explanation. You need any more information? Are you ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor of the suggested salary increases for constitutional officers signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. But now it brings us to the next. Okay, yeah, down to 14. Okay, so we're not taking up the other ones right now. Are we? Okay, Sheriff, Order.
No, that's different.
Okay. All right, I thought that was it. Discussion and possible action, the resolution approving designation of Highway Commissioner as signing authority for Fair Parks Recycling and Snowmobile Alliance operations. And I will defer to you to explain this.
So as you all know, we're undergoing some shifting of duties with responsibilities for the fair and the parks and different recycling and the Snowmobile Alliance. So in order to proceed forward with that and have a signatory for grants and documents, Josh needs to be able to sign for those items.
Are you getting calls from
All kind,
possible vendors?
all kind.
Where can I put my,
So I've already looked into running those said departments basically, and I've kept everything moving as far as I can, but it's getting to the point where I need signing authority to be able to sign off on said documents, like our annual reporting with recycling and the oncoming snowmobile grants and so on and so forth. So before I can proceed any farther, I need that resolution passed by Polk County Board eventually to be able to sign for said things.
right? Okay, do I have a motion? Mr. Cooley, Mr. Manning seconds. Cooley first. Makes sense to me.
Let's get him some more work.
Sorry.
Take my button too, Mark.
Just, I need to understand the Snowmobile Alliance. What part of the county is it or how's it? I don't know that.
Let's get the motion on the, well, it is on the floor. We've got it. It is on the floor. Can someone answer that, the Snowmobile Alliance?
Used to be the parks would apply, Kathy Cooper would apply. I think you were on the land conservation, were you on there when she would apply for the snowmobile grant?
Yeah, but I never did understand. Where
It's money in, money out.
Right, but it's also statute function. In order to distribute the money to the individual snowmobile alliances or clubs, a county official has to be the one to be able to distribute those funds. The state will not just write a check to individual little clubs here and there. It has to be run through the county.
So it's a pass through.
It's pass through. Okay.
Does that also get into our trail, our hiking biking trail?
That'll all be, well, that's a separate thing, but
Separate thing.
it's all part of running the same kind of grants and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Makes sense. If he wants, do you want this? Okay.
Oh, I would love it.
All right.
That's
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second, and give Josh some signing authority here. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Gee,
Oh, it doesn't care. You know what, I neglected to address something that's in your packets that I probably should have during my report. There's a whole bunch of pages here, so I should probably tell you about it.
If you don't mind, we're gonna go back in the agenda here.
You guys, in your packets, there's a whole bunch of information on Globe Life. There's no action needed on this. This was really for information only. We met with a representative from Globe Life, and it's very similar to kind of like an Aflac, where they offer gap coverage for different life events, whether it's accident, it's hospitalization, it's a cancer policy, all sorts of things like that, accidental injury. And so it's on a case-by-case basis. The individual will come, meet with an employee, and we can take the money out through a payroll deduction. The county pays nothing for this, but it's a huge benefit, especially if you have some sort of catastrophic event or a cancer event or something like that. And there's a little bit of information in here. And the beauty of this company, which is different than most other companies. If you have this coverage for 25 years and you never have to use it, you never have to file a claim, you get all your money back. So it's really outstanding. And they pretty routinely return money to people. But, you know, then again, you have a catastrophic cancer event and it is thousands of dollars that you will be paid for various items that'll bridge the gap between lost wages and the inability to work. So I was very impressed with his presentation. Again, it just adds to the benefits that we can offer our employees, and it costs the county nothing. So we're going to add this to our benefit package overall. So that was it.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So it brings us down to future agenda items, and we already have one that we moved. I think we had another one, didn't we?
Update on
An update on the towers.
solid project. Administrator Fesh, were you looking at this brought it back, I think we talked once about a benefits committee? Is that what you guys are working on within the?
So what I, at the last,
It could be on next month.
yeah, well, I mean, I can give you a brief update on that now. At the last department head meeting, I did ask every department to bring back suggestion for one or two individuals to sit on kind of a benefits committee. I said, give me your worst critic, the person that never has anything positive to say, because we want to hear that. And then somebody else who's, you know, whoever else you want. But it really is important to hear those people that are really unhappy with things so that we can hear them out and take that feedback and work on how to make our benefits package better. I'm bringing NIS, National Insurance Services, in the beginning of March to meet and discuss opportunities to look at other opportunities for our insurance packages, just to see where we're at. And we'll start kind of evaluating things as we go.
Are you talking about health insurance?
I am, but that not just health.
Casualty insurance.
Health, accidental death and dismemberment. They have vision coverage. They have dental coverage. They have all sorts of coverages. So
So we're not reassessing the county's insurance for hail, flood.
no benefits. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Does that cover future agenda items?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Sorry I missed you last night. I skipped over you.
Skip every now and then. Don't make it
So
a
it
habit.
doesn't look like it's.
Don't make it a habit, Mark.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. We are adjourned.
Bring up that parking vault.